So much stuff has happened for Washington the last few hours. Oh my God. Just after you lose to the Carolina Panthers, you still have a shot to win your division. But then just today, you decided you've had enough of him, and you decided, with one more game left of the regular season, to cut Dwayne Haskins. This speaks volumes for a whole bunch of reasons, because next week they play against the Eagles on Sunday Night Football. If they win, they are in. They win their division, albeit with a losing record, but still win their division either way, and they get to host a home playoff game, whether that be against the Buccaneers or the Rams. They still get to host a home playoff game. So what does that tell you about Dwayne Haskins? It tells you one thing. He's one of the biggest busts of the last 20 years, without question. Because when you look at quarterbacks that have been outright cut in 2-3 years, like Paxton Lynch, Johnny Manziel, Josh Rosen, at least those guys stayed beyond 2 years. Dwayne Haskins couldn't even finish his second season. This is... And why did this happen for Dwayne Haskins anyway? What went wrong? Well, you got to look at a few reasons. First off, we got to look at the team itself. Washington, formerly known as the Redskins, are not a team that people in or outside the NFL see as a good, well-run organization. Ever since Dan Snyder acquired the team in 1999, they've been the prime source, albeit other than the Lions, as utility and incompetence in the NFC in the NFL. They're known for immense dysfunction. They've had a total like 10 head coaches since 1999. I think including interims like, Bill Callahan and whatnot. And now you've gone through... Couldn't get Jason Campbell right. You couldn't get RG3 right. You let Kirk Cousins go. And not even 2 years after you take Dwayne Haskins, he's gone. And not only that, you also were forced to change your name because of advertising reasons with FedEx and with the George Floyd protests. Not to mention all the sexual assault allegations and sexual harassment lawsuits that have gone against the organization from at least like 40 women that have taken place. So there's a lot of pressure on there. And even though they're trying to repair it now with Ron Rivera and Jason Wright, for all we know, this might be a little bit a situation of too little, too late. It's easier to go down the chute than it is to go up the ladder. That's how I see it. Basically, it's much harder to create an infrastructure. It's much harder to create an infrastructure, but it's much easier to just see it all tumble down and make wrong decisions. And then we also look at Dwayne Haskins himself as a player. During the draft, many people thought him as the second best quarterback in the draft, right after Kyler Murray. And many people on Twitter especially were very, very upset that Daniel Jones was taken by the New York Giants because they saw it as, racism. Was it racism? I don't know. One has a job, one doesn't, so you tell me. Then Dwayne Haskins goes to, that time, the Redskins. And, Case Keenum is mostly the starter. So we already knew that Jay Gruden wasn't as big onto Dwayne Haskins as, Bruce Allen was or Dan Snyder was. So Case Keenum's mostly starting. And then in one final ditch effort, Colt McCoy starts that one game against the Patriots. They get blown out. Gruden loses his job. Callahan takes over. It goes back to Keenum, but it also goes to Haskins as well. Back and forth, and he looks kind of raw. He looks like he needs some time to work in. But either way, the following season, following the whole name change, Ron Rivera as the head coach, Jason Wright as CEO, he's named captain. And it seems okay, but then they decide to change things up a little bit. They decided early in the season to bench Dwayne Haskins in favor of Kyle Allen. And many people were like, including myself, was like, why are they doing this? Is it because Allen is Rivera's guy and not Haskins? But little do we know, that there's a lot deeper issues going on with Haskins. You see, even before the season, there was also many people thinking that potentially, as the number 2 pick, they could take a quarterback there. There could be a chance that they could have taken Tua or Justin Herbert with a number 2 pick, because Ron Rivera, allegedly, there was reports saying that they were not even that sold on Dwayne Haskins. And maybe people saw that, would it be another Josh Rosen situation? Turns out that was not the case. They did take Chase Young, who is going to, I do think he will definitely be Defensive Rookie of the Year. But you still have that cloud hanging over people's head, especially with Alex Smith coming back, albeit he'd be a third string at that point. But he still had some questions going on. But as it's been shown the last few weeks, it might not have just been the player. It might have also just been the person of Dwayne Haskins himself. I mean, this guy was in Ohio State. He had a 50-yard touchdown season. He was a candidate for the Heisman. I think he was, by the way. Taken in the first round, first half of the first round by Washington. Joe Theismann lets him use number 7. Maybe it could go well, but he wasn't that committed to it. He was stripped of his captaincy after he was violating COVID restrictions, going to a strip club, old Lou Williams style, and James Harden at that same time. And also, not only that, you also had to deal with the fact that he had a level of immaturity that was not tolerated by his teammates or the organization. There's also a lot of issues brewing within him as well. I think there was also some uncomfort for him. I also believe that he probably just didn't show enough passion for it. I don't think his work ethic was there. I think he was too immature for the job. I think with all the situations going on, it didn't help. But at the same time, he didn't make things easier for himself. I mean, after all this stuff happens, he still got a chance to start for the game against the Panthers on Sunday. And we saw from year 1 to year 2, he has regressed, if anything. He has not been good when he's played. Hell, in the last 10 years, I don't know the specific statistic, but it's shown that the only Washington quarterback in the last 10 years that's had a winning record is Alex Smith, with like 10 wins under his belt. Everyone else has a losing record. And yes, that includes Kirk Cousins, which I'm not a really big fan of doing win and losses. But when Alex Smith is there right now, he is by far their best quarterback. He's the best person for that job, especially considering that he has the defense. I mean, your offensive line is okay. Brandon Scherf's nice. And you have Terry McLaurin. Granted, you might not have the best skill position. You have Antonio Gibson, J.D. McKissick. But you could do a little bit more there. You sent Trent Williams, you sent him off to San Francisco. And you had a whole issue there with him. So there's not a whole lot to work with. But even then, Alex Smith has shown that he is the best guy for the job. And you can't play him right now. So what do? You go to Dwayne Haskins. And now that he's gone, you just cut him in a game where he had 3 turnovers total. And you turn to Taylor Heineke. You bench him for Taylor Heineke, a guy that hasn't played in the last couple of years. And now you sit back and say, as a Washington fan, you would think you'd be so excited. Like, if you just win against the Eagles, you make the playoffs. You win the division. But now you have this cloud over your head that, man, we whiffed on a quarterback again. And he didn't last he didn't even last 2 years for us. This is not a good sign. And I personally think they could take a quarterback in the first round again. But at the same time, I also need to look at the draft class. And, for all we know, they could probably just stick with Alex Smith another year. They could. I mean, if he wants to play another year. I mean, I have no idea what is going to happen. And I don't think most people do. But, they need to find out what their future entails, whether they make the playoffs or not. They need to know who their starting quarterback is going to be, if it's going to be Alex Smith or someone else. And going back to Dwayne Haskins, I think this should be a big wake-up call for him. The fact they couldn't even trade him away, they just outright cut him. They cut him completely. They come on waivers and no one picked him up. He's a free agent now. I think this kid needs a fresh start, like a smaller market, like a Cincinnati, whatever. Like I can honestly see him as the backup for the Steelers. I'd like to see that. I mean, I'd rather have him over someone like Mason Rudolph or Devlin Hodges because, and then, a young guy who was a first-round pick, having a great head coach like Mike Tomlin there with a really nice culture, a really nice organization that knows what it's like to win and win consistently like the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think that would be perfect for him outside of an organization like Washington. Are you kidding me? No. The football team, the last 20 years, I mean, other than them and the Lions, those are the two basement dwellers when it comes to success. in fact, they haven't. Neither of them have made the conference championship since 1991 when they faced each other. How about that? Imagine that. And outside of that, I mean, I'm rooting for the kid. I mean, I don't want to hold any ill will against him because he's only 23 years old. But at the same time, this is the prime of your life. This is the prime of your life. This is the time of your life. And you also should not be doing anything stupid. But here we are, one day after after Washington loses to the Panthers, one win away, and you make the playoffs. But now they're looking at it with potentially Taylor Heineke as their starting quarterback after cutting Dwayne Haskins, and they're now like, man, if you're a fan of Washington, I don't see how any way you could have nothing but just a negative feeling. But hopefully, I hope you guys turned around. I hope you guys got a new name because the name football team doesn't make things any easier. I gotta just say, I hate the name football team. I don't like the term football club either. But all this stuff adds to just an overall just ineptitude that Washington exhibits. And it has to end one of these days. And to Dwayne Haskins, best of luck. I hope you fix yourself out. Forget being a player, just fix yourself out as a person. I hope for Washington, Taylor Heineke is good for them. But either way, future's going to be really interesting for this team. And it starts from the top. And you got to make sure you hit on the quarterback this time because you can only fail this many times because it's already put your organization back for years after RG3. But you will let him stay for 4 years. But Dwayne Haskins, you just cut him out, not even after 2. You follow up one big miss with an even bigger one, a much more disastrous one. Not going to be good. Ron Rivera has a lot of work to do, as well as getting a new GM. I trust him to do it, but this is going to be a major undertaking. If he's able to do this, it will only increase the level of respect I already have for the man. And best of luck, guys. You're going to need it.